And we're going to let everybody in. Good afternoon, everybody. We're just letting the room fill. Thank you for the matinee, or the late afternoon showing, I should say. We had the matinee showing already. This is the late afternoon show. Well, hopefully it'll be over in time for your Netflix this evening. But before that,
c'est le... Oh, sorry.
Yeah, before that, we're just waiting for the room to fill up. And Peter has put some instructions in the chat in French, which we'll be going over in just a minute in relationship to the translation function, some of which you are familiar with from the earlier 2 sessions.
Donc, nous allons attendre que la salle se remplisse de participants avant de commencer. Et quand ça sera fait, on va commencer la traduction simultanée et on va vous expliquer comment l'utiliser.
All right. Well, this afternoon, we have Adrienne is going to be running the boards for us. Thank you, Adrienne, and helping with various things, of course, as a moderator. And I also will be doing most of the moderating in terms of introductions here. We'll be trading off. But what we've got today is a session, plant breeding session 3. Before we get into that, we're going to be using the interpretation function. In a moment, our wonderful interpreters, Fanny Poirier and Peter Fledstein, will be being put into the interpretation booth. And when I do that, you'll all be seeing a globe function at the bottom or on your toolbar. In that globe function, this little globe, you're going to want to choose your language, French or English. And that's pretty simple. So right now I'm going to put Fanny and Peter in the chat. But before that, Peter, if you'd like to translate that, that'd be great. Peter, would you like to say that in French, or did you already do that?
Oh, sorry, my mic was off. Donc, dans quelques instants, vous allez voir apparaître au bas de l'écran, donc dans la barre d'outils, un globe à droite avec le mot interpretation, interprétation. Donc, vous n'aurez qu'à cliquer dessus et choisir le français si vous voulez écouter cette langue. Et vous pouvez aussi cliquer sur Mute Original Audio si vous voulez réduire le volume de l'anglais d'origine. Et vous écouterez la traduction en français. Si vous avez envie de poser vos questions par la suite, vous pouvez le faire verbalement ou dans le chat en français si vous voulez. Ça sera traduit simultanément. Vous entendrez les réponses en français. Donc, tout va bien se dérouler. Alors, et s'il y a des problèmes techniques, vous pouvez communiquer avec nous dans la boîte de chat et on va les régler tout de suite.
Thank you very much, Peter. I will now be placing the wonderful interpreter team into the chat. Thank you. I mean, sorry, into the booth. Give me a second. Okay, y'all. See you soon, interpreters. Let's give them a moment to get settled. Okay, please get out. There's a globe now available at the bottom of on your toolbar, wherever that may be, and you'll be wanting to choose your language, English or French. Give you a second to do that. Adrienne, do you have the intro slides pulled up? Go ahead and share your screen.
Okay, let me get that up for you. A second here. Okay.
Okay, great. Thank you, everybody. Welcome to Plant Breeders Day Session 3. Now you have a new variety. What's next? Visions for classic and emergent models. So this is a wonderful workshop provided by Jason Cavatorta of Earthworks seed, S on the works, not on the earth. Or is it Earthwork seeds? Did I get that wrong, Jason, again? For the 40. It's Earthwork seeds. All right, okay, no S on the works, S on the seeds, Earthwork seeds, there we go. Petra, Page-Mann, Fruition seeds, and Craig LeHoullier, who is author, tomato guy, all around good person here with us today. Breeder as well, seed saver, all those good things. It's also Craig's birthday. We got him a new president. You know, he said he wanted a present, and we didn't quite understand what he was saying. So we got to have a new president. Let's, you know, hope you're satisfied. Gosh darn it, you're asking an awful lot. But our live French translation today is provided by the Bauta Family Initiative on Canadian Seed Security. And you've seen Hugo and Rebecca very active in the chat, as well as a moderator. For Hugo's been really heavily involved, as well as Rebecca, in planning this whole thing. So much thanks to them. This is the third iteration of a collaboration between NOFA New York and the Northeast Organic Seed Conference. Every other year, we're joining together. So you're seeing on your screen is the conference agreements. This is basically how we're showing respect for each other in conversation. We're primarily looking for all the kindness that we always attend to each other in person. But a few other things that we need to be mindful of is one mic, particularly in Zoom when someone's speaking, stay muted. Use the raise hand function, which is on your reactions tool, or *9 on the phone. Also, avoid jargon. There's a lot of jargon, which is either scientific words or acronyms. It's always good to say what those things mean, spell them out. Also, be patient. We're doing this Zoom thing. The Zoom gods, or God, polytheistic or monotheistic as they are fickle. We have done the appropriate prayers before this session. So I am a heathen and they know it, so I understand revenge is coming. But next slide. I want to take a moment, particularly as we speak about seeds and we use this term germplasm or genetics. I really want to take a moment for us all to acknowledge the land that we are living with today and the indigenous community that has lived and will live and does live with this same community, and want to show some respect for that, particularly in this moment where we continue to talk about plant breeding. This map link that's on this slide can be expanded to the entire United States, and we'll show you what tribe occupies, occupied, and hopefully will occupy that land in the future. Let's take a moment. Next slide. We're also really lucky to have the ongoing support of Amanda David and Madonna Bushi in the In Living Color virtual Black Indigenous People of Color space. These are folks that have come to us and are really just providing a community service and 24-hour support. Feel free to reach out to them at any point during the conference. They'll be doing a closing ceremony on Saturday as well. Don't miss it. Next slide. Keynote speakers, we've had some wonderful ones. Laura Legnick was great on Saturday. Banu Subramaniam is coming up on Thursday night, and that looks to be a wonderful session with some help from Madeline Therese Helpert, Petra Page-Mann, who's on this call, as well as Myra Manning. I've been working with her to create some wonderful content. And then Brian Caldwell on Saturday. Next slide. The University of Vermont note takers have been with us throughout this whole week. Ryan, if you want to give the shout out again in the chat, let us know who's present. These folks are also going to put a link in the chat related to building a map for who's doing what in the Northeast. And all the notes today are going to be not personal or identifiable, but really towards compiling a narrative to help us with our needs assessment on Sunday. Next slide. The needs assessment on Sunday is a free event. It's a post-conference free event that you'll find the link in the blurb that just got pasted into the chat. by the UVM note takers. Please register for that. That's the only way to get in. You can't get in through the Socio app. But really at this point, we're trying to take stock of what it means to have seed community in the Northeast. We're looking at the, building a new table. It's not just about putting seats at a table. It's about those of us who use seed, save seed, breed things, produce seed, all of us learning to understand how we can help each other and support our needs. Next slide. Okay, so we're going to turn it over to our wonderful people. Again, we've got Petra Page-Mann from Fruition Seeds. We have Craig LeHoullier, again, birthday boy. Jason Cavatorta from Earthwork Seeds. And I want to reiterate, there is some French instructions in the chat about how to use the translation function. Again, it will be a globe that is at the bottom of, that is on your toolbar that you will choose a language from. So I'll also be posting some things in the chat about the Society of Organic Seed Professionals. We'll be having a cool happy hour, bring a drink for anyone, whether you're a member or not. That'll be actually after the keynote on Thursday. So without ado, here's how this is going to roll. Is these three wonderful folks are going to be having a very entertaining conversation, trading off on certain topics. And Adrienne and I are going to kind of monitor the chat as well as your raise hands. So please feel free to ask a question during this next 45 minutes or so. These folks have given us permission to interrupt with pertinent questions as they kind of roll. And then they're going to throw the conversation out to you all for like a broader, bigger, what are we doing and how are we doing it conversation. So I'm going to turn this over to Jason Cavatorta. Thank you, my friend. We're here to support you.
Great. Hi, everybody. And maybe Craig and Petra, we should just take a second to introduce ourselves before we jump into the slides. I know we got a little bit of an intro from Heron already, but I'll just say I'm a plant breeder. I live in Florida, although I'm originally from Massachusetts, and I was really excited about speaking on this particular topic because I think a lot of plant breeders are very excited about developing new varieties, and what happens once that variety is developed isn't always known. And so we had some great talks earlier today about how you develop a variety, how you get started in a breeding program. And I hope that the three of us can shed some light and maybe hear from everybody in the audience how you can get those varieties out there in the world. And so they're not just sitting on your shelf as a packet of seeds.
Petra?
Well, friends, I am so delighted to be with you, as embodied as we may be in this pandemic moment. Greetings and such love from this occupied, unceded Haudenosaunee Seneca Finger Lakes, we now call ourselves in Western New York. And Fruition Seeds, when people ask us if we have babies, if we have children, we say yes, and great grandchildren. And I consider myself a recovering plant breeder. I would love to share more about that in the very near future. And I am so delighted to be here learning and laughing with us all.
Hey, everyone. It's such a privilege to have been asked to present my work with my friends Jason and Petra. My name is Craig LeHoullier. Recently, over the last year, just about an exact year ago, we made the move from Raleigh to Western North Carolina, just south of Asheville and Hendersonville. And interestingly enough, it's Cherokee area. And I actually was the guy who got to name the tomato Cherokee Purple when J.D. Green sent me the seed as an unnamed variety back in 1990 when I was living in Raleigh. So it's only poetic justice that I now reside very close to Sevierville, Tennessee, and the tomato that is near and dear to me. I look forward to sharing my unique approach to plant breeding. I'm going to call it crowd breeding, and we'll get into that, and hopefully it will stimulate lots of questions and discussion. So.
Okay, we do have some slides. Adrienne, are you going to be able to put those up for us?
Yep, I'll do that right now.
We love you, Adrienne.
Thank
Don't
you.
say that until the slide we get
No,
through
no.
the slideshow. Give me a second here.
Ooh, oh, can we back up a moment?
Nope.
Okay, I just noticed that I don't know that my updated slides were on that slide, they weren't on the left margin of your screen. Not to take us back a moment. I don't know if there's any way you can like access the live.
Did you recently put them in the Google Drive?
I confess it was probably 60 minutes ago, maybe.
Oh, then this isn't the most up-to-date one. So do you guys want to start while I navigate getting it? It'll probably take me 5 minutes to download it and get it up. Is that okay?
Totally.
You guys talk amongst yourselves.
Sure. No, that's fine. In fact, we can probably get started. I mean, the slides are just some photos to kind of guide our conversation, and they'll be great when they're up. But it's a big topic. You know, what do you do once you have a variety, or you don't even need to have developed a variety? If there's a great variety like Cherokee Purple that's already out there and you want to get it out into the world, how do you do that? And there are a lot of different ways to do that. And I think my co-presenters and I are represent kind of a spectrum of ways that you can do that. And I think it'll be fun to kind of go through the ways that we have tried to do that with some varieties that either we've bred ourselves or we have gotten access to from other breeders. But these are just 3 ways that it can be done. And there's probably 3,000. And I want to make a big disclaimer up front that I do not know the best way to do it and have in fact made some very big mistakes in trying to do it. And, you know, I tell everybody I learn all my lessons by doing it the wrong way first. And so take everything I say with a big grain of salt. I'll just say that.
I'd love to take it with a grain of salt on one of your amazing melons myself, Jason. and I'd love to just take a few moments, perhaps 5 minutes more realistically, to just kind of back up and ground us in kind of this larger water that we're swimming in. And there'll be some fun slides at the beginning to kind of shepherd us through this. There's a very excellent one of Amerigo Vespucci that I'm so excited for you to see. But in the meantime, let's dive in. So I would like to start off with, I love you all. I love all of us present, and I love all the people who will be listening to this in the future. And we all consider ourselves somewhere on this continuum of plant breeder, plant breeding. And so I offer the next few minutes of reflection as a critique of systems we find ourselves in and not of our souls. I love when Rowan White first told me that we are all indigenous hearts with imperial minds. And it makes me cry every time I remember that. So yes, this is, as we enter this conversation where we'll be diving into details, a lot of this like, okay, you've got a new variety. Now let's talk about production and let's talk about distribution. And I just would love, and I'm so grateful to share these few moments of stepping back to recognize that these are conversations embedded in an architecture of what we've been given, of the water that we swim in, of this neoliberal colonized world, neoliberal colonized seed system with whiteness and patriarchy as reinforcing paradigms just making it increasingly hard to even see and name these paradigms, much less dismantle them. And so, yes, you've got a new variety. What do we do now? Don't worry if you didn't come for decolonization. We'll get there in a few minutes. But in the meantime, now that we're just looking at this lens of the water that we're swimming in, what do we do now? So here are a few I'd love to offer. Ooh, Adrienne, could you go forward to the next slide? And the next slide. Yes, so because, you know, there's like plant breeders and then there's new varieties. And next slide, because I love to love what we critique and critique what we love. And this is so critical. And here are some of the things that I am sitting with at this time that are really just fascinating juxtapositions as before we get into the weeds, into the woods of stepping up, quote, our plant breeding. So what we think of seeds, we think they are ours to own. We think they're ours to share, that we think that seeds are ours to monetize. We claim creation of these new varieties, which is a form of dominion, and we quote, we breed them. I made this variety. We made this variety. We have power over this plant. And it's often framed as an individual act. Next slide. This is my continent. Thank you, Amerigo. Go home already. You will also see it. Next slide, on the moon. And next slide. I hope you see this picture a little differently now. And so I love when Anand Giridharadas says, you have to know about a problem, be part of a problem. I am here and I know a lot about these problems in that I perpetuate them in pretty extraordinary ways and mostly without even realizing it. And especially in this photograph, just a couple minutes more, we recognize plant breeders as plant breeders. Individuals in our culture. Our seed catalogs lift up plant breeder individuals. Fancy events celebrate these individual plant breeders, these stories that center what we did to plants and not what plants did to us, or one of more reciprocal flourishing. And so these hierarchical, these academic, these models are really toxic, to the point that patents normalized, these commodities of global exchange, are just how we institutionalize respect while maintaining power dynamics. Contractual litigated frameworks at every level, whether they're non-disclosure quote agreements, non-compete clauses, material transfer agreements, confidentiality. There's a spectrum of ownership. And you give me $3.79, I will give you a packet of seeds. What? And so I'd love to just, this is how I think of it. I can buy a Patagonia jacket and sweet, I've got a Patagonia jacket and you can buy a Patagonia jacket and we've all got our piece of the pie and we're all warm enough. And at the end of the day, it's Patagonia's power that we are upholding. So I bring these conversations to this place because without realizing it, it's just the air that we breathe and the water that we swim in, that we have very colonized imperial approaches, whether we realize it or not, to dominating these plants and ourselves and each other, sanctioned by this win-win neoliberalism, allowing us to feel okay, buffering us, especially the most powerful of us, because we have ours and we're giving back. And we uphold the system because we have our Patagonia jackets and we have our piece of the pie. And they're organic seeds, right? We're doing good things for the world. And so I finish with this uncomfortable truth, that we, Fruition seeds, me, Petra, at the top of the list, and also we, our wider community and our human family in this moment, we are maintaining colonial extractive control of our seeds and our stories. It will take lifetimes of generations of unlearning to do this work. We have a few choices. We can see it and we can not see it and continue our work. We can see it and ignore it, and we can see it, sit with the discomfort, and commit to the journey with friends, which is what I'm doing today. So thank you for sitting with me in this discomfort, and also with the joy of unlearning, the joy of relearning, the joy of learning and growing, and with friends always. So if these are ideas, oh, you can forward to the next slide, Adrienne. Oh man, yeah, there's no I in plant breeder because there's probably a dog around. Okay, I digress. So now transitioning, I'd love to share just a few of the ways that Fruition, quote, sources new varieties. So next slide. One of those, I mentioned MTAs, material transfer agreements, earlier. We are really grateful to be a part of many public plant breeders' lives and to have the privilege of access to these materials. So this is Badger, Badger Flame Beet. What did you have for lunch, Petra? This is Honey Badger Corn. And so this is a variety that, you know, public plant breeders and OSA were creating. And so we were just grateful to get a material transfer agreement and grow seed and to share it. And so that is one of the many ways that we are sourcing. And also, next slide, we love it when these public plant breeders and other just folks give us seeds that then we get to play with. So this was a cross that a plant breeder made and then gave us the F2, and we've been playing with it every year since. Next slide, among other watermelons, it's August Ambrosia. All these years later, tasted, selected by us, and so many, like, I would love to know the numbers, but it's easily over 1,000 humans that participated in all the different tastings over the years to help guide the process. So that's another way that we are engaging in plant breeding. Oh, go for it, Adrienne, you know, because Honey Drop, we love Tevis, Crab Apple Farm. And so he has so many other amateur plant breeders. I mean, plant breeders, amazing community plant breeders. Davis is quick to say this is his daughter's selection more than his. So we have people just giving us new varieties to share as well. And one of my favorite, next slide, is just all the ways that we collaborate with farmers like Nathaniel Thompson in the middle and Erwin Goldman on the left, public plant breeder, University of Wisconsin, Madison. So collaborating. And then next slide, oh my gosh, we just get to taste all these things and you can kind of see all the people. So doing these, I mentioned earlier, recovering plant breeder. I don't know that plant breeder, I don't identify as myself an individual being a plant breeder, but plant breeding does have an I in it as a verb, as a living, breathing, iterating process, engaging things in that process, beings with that process. So as a community plant breeder, yes, step up, let's eat carrots, let's eat watermelon. And next slide, yeah, so that carrot, next slide, had so many people tasting it, and all of these people are plant breeders as much as I am. So that's just a few of the ways that Fruition is, quote, sourcing, creating, quote, new varieties, always with our gratitude for thousands of years of indigenous genius plant breeders, illiterate only by modern standards, as Joseph Lofthouse, I love to hear him say. Take it away, Craig. I think these are some beautiful tomatoes of yours.
All right, that was really inspirational, Petra. And anything that I was going to say has now been thrown totally out of the window. So I can, and I'm looking at Jason smile, so I can kind of continue and type. I love the word play and I love the word fun. And I've heard both of those words used often today. I find walking in gardens and growing things, I've found it fun since I was 2 years old. And my grandfather and my dad used to walk me through gardens. And then I became a boring chemist and had to do the corporate life. But now I get to do what I want to do. So so I joined the Seed Savers in 1986, and we sell seedlings, and I think I've grown about 4,000 different tomatoes right now. I have a huge collection, but we would sell seedlings at the farmer's market, and there was a niche. People would come up to me and say, I want some things that are interesting and great, but I don't have to climb a ladder, and I don't have to worry about suckers and pruning. I want to be able to grow in a pot. I want to be able to enjoy gardening on my deck. And COVID has sown the seeds of so many thousands of new gardeners around the country. So, and a lot of them are going to be on a patio and a deck. So I was chatting with my friend Petra in Australia back in 2004 on Garden Web, and we realized there were only 2 or 3 types of dwarf growing tomatoes in all of history. There was Dwarf Champion, there was Dwarf Stone. They were kind of boring, they were okay, but no one ever got in there and exploited the fact that we can create great tasting tomatoes on short growing plants. So we pulled a project together, and that was 2005. We have employed, and you know, I call it crowd breeding, but I love Solveig's term, PBB. What we're actually doing is participatory plant breeding using outreach, because we've employed the talents of, and I'm not a geneticist, I'm a chemist. I am not a horticulturist, I'm a gardener. But we've had 800 people or more from all over the world that I've sent seeds back and forth with, and we've done selections, and they've found brilliant colors, and they all start with a cross. But we now have 134 new named stable OP dwarf growing varieties in every conceivable color, shape, and size. Petra at Fruition, they carry some. Victory Seeds out in Oregon, they carry all 134. Mike Dunton is fascinated with this project, and he really wants to be a company that carries everything we do. And we're still running strong. Next slide. And this is me on the left on a very hot day in North Carolina. And Petra, my co-project leader from Australia on the right, Petra would do all the crosses. And what a time we live in, where you have all of these wonderful heirloom indeterminate tomatoes, the Cherokee Purples, the Brandywines, the Desters, the Green Giants, to use as crossing partners with the very, very few dwarf varieties that were in existence at the time. And that on the table early on, this is 2010, where we were just still doing a lot of selections. But it was play, and it was fun. And I really resonate with what Petra said, because all we were doing is helping to guide the process where all of these other people were creating this breeding collective. We were all learning. We were all learning from our mistakes. We were learning as much about what we do like as what we don't like. But at the end of the day, it was all about exciting colors, exciting flavors, and varieties that people could grow happily on a deck and a patio and have joy growing. And we'll get into later on in the talk what we did in terms of getting this out, what kind of collaborations we felt were important. Is that my last slide before we go on? Let's switch forward. Yep. So that's kind of just a little taste following on from Petra's excitement and just sharing her excitement for the play and the fun. And we'll go on and see what Jason has to say.
Yeah, and we kind of skipped over our intro slide, but basically, you know, when we were trying to figure out what to talk about for this presentation, we kind of realized that there's basically 3 main steps that you need to do in order to get a variety out there in the world. You or somebody needs to develop a variety. You or somebody needs to actually grow the seeds of those variety, of that variety, and you or somebody needs to distribute that seed, whether that is selling it through a seed catalog, giving it away, encouraging other people to produce it and give it away. But there are 3 things that have to be done. We always focus on developing a variety, breeding a variety. And we didn't want the focus of this talk to be that. So we're just showing in this first section, all three of us, some varieties that either we spent some time working on or other people spent some time working on. But they're varieties that we have basically done some work with and have tried to get out there in the world. Obviously, yeah, we have a little bit different approaches to doing that, but we face the exact same challenges. And so I am a plant breeder. That's my only job. That's what I'm passionate about. And so here's just a few varieties that I've developed. And then I had this variety and the question, what do I do with it? And that's really what we want. That's the topic of discussion today. So this is a golden acorn variety that I worked on. I actually, the starting material for this was honeybear by the late Brent Loy, and table gold from Ovid Schiffer's. And I just started in my garden, crossing these together, and I got some land from a farmer and started planting out populations and selecting them over years, and tried to develop a hybrid variety that combined the good flavor of honeybear with the interesting appearance of Goldilocks. It's a pretty straightforward project. This is a tomato that I've done some work on. It goes back to some material that I got from NC State, and Mountain Merit is the variety name. And it actually has brandywine in the pedigree as well to bring in some improved flavor. And I was looking for, a large, good tasting beefsteak, and I was able to work with a laboratory to run some molecular markers, and we fixed it for 8 different disease resistance genes. And that's Galahad. And this is Celine, which was developed by my coworker. It's a variety that was just introduced this month officially, and it's the world's first purple wax bean. And there are purple beans out there, which are basically that purple anthocyanin pigment on a green bean. And so you can see on that photo, if you take a purple bean and you cut it lengthwise, it's green on the inside. And of course, there are wax beans, which are yellow on both the outside and the inside. And nobody had crossed the two together before and put that purple color on yellow. And he was John Hart developed this variety, and he was the first person to do so. So it's pretty neat, really cool project. So okay, here we are now. We have these varieties from various sources, and somebody needs to produce seed of them. So that's kind of our next section.
Oh yeah, let's talk. Well, Jason, let's talk about Celine. Holy moly, and production. We're here to help and share lunch. And so I'd love to begin this section about production with just a huge shout out to our team here at Fruition. There are 9 of us full time, and I couldn't stand here smiling, holding Davi in my arms and playing accordion happy birthday for Craig if it wasn't for all of these amazing humans. And certainly we couldn't grow our seeds either. So I just wanted to thank the Fruition team and also our wider community and wider families and friends that have made it possible for us to arrive in this moment and still be smiling. So next slide. We produce anywhere between like 3 to 6 acres a given year, so it really varies, but we're generally around 5. And so this is we have lots of fun things to play with, as Craig you so beautifully said. This is a watermelon seed being processed, August ambrosia being processed. If you're curious about some of those kind of production levels, seed production levels, my beloved partner Matthew just shared some of our small scale, large for us scale tricks and tips for that. So definitely enjoy the recordings if you weren't there live yesterday. So we love to produce seed on our farm. We produce about 60% of the seeds that we share. And next slide, there's a number of other farmers in the Finger Lakes and much wider across the Northeast. This is our tiny friend Edith and her father Nathaniel. You saw earlier with Erwin Goldman and I in a field of Dulcinea carrots that were very young. And so this is a red Russian kale variety that we've been selecting with him and just like making a workhorse way more cold hardy and serrated and purple. So we love to collaborate with local farmers and regional farmers to produce seed as well. And oh yeah, next slide. And that's just, the next slide is Edith's hands and just some of those seeds, which always just makes me want to cry. So next slide, Tournay Soul, shout out to all our dear friends from Canada who are joining us today. And we are so grateful to source seed. You'll see Dan Frisois on the far left of the screen. They grow incredible seeds, and there are so many incredible organic seed producers in the Northeast. So we're really grateful to collaborate with many of them. And so that is another way that we are also trying to create contracts and just relationships. I don't think I at all touched on this in any adequate way in my kind of intro about how relationships to me are so much of the how do we find ourselves moving forward in ways that are like necessary and more generative. So we're really revisiting how we're framing contracts profoundly this year. We've been following a lot of more classic models, and then this year we were like, wait a minute, what are we doing out the window? So if you'd like to talk about that, reach out to us anytime. And I'd also love to lift up, next slide, Acacia and the Applegate Valley of Oregon. We also love to collaborate with many growers on the West Coast who are able to grow certain kinds of seed at much higher quality than we are here in the Northeast. So looking at that like production of, you know, who are just, it's all relationships, right? And building those networks and really building that community. So that's just a few little thoughts about seed production. When you have the new variety, what's next? Oh man, take it away, Craig.
All right. So Jason was talking about varieties. We didn't really get, again, I wanted to add a few things into that first box and really change the paradigm, because when your idea for a breeding project is just kind of a concept and you're not encumbered by thoughts such as, do I need to make a profit on this? Do I need to sell it? Do I need to write contracts? It's just as simple as starting with these tools. And next slide. You're crossing tomatoes, and what you're ending up with are things like this. And these are four varieties that grow on short plants. Just Sweet Sue, which is I named after my wife. It's my favorite tasting of all 134 varieties, fortunately. She's happy about that. Furticae, which was named by a fellow who discovered it in New Zealand. In the upper right, Pink Passion, a pink dwarf, which Fruition got on the bandwagon of that one very early, and Uluru Ochre also. So some of the rules of our game, whoever finds it gets to name it. So if someone in New Zealand found it, they named it a Maori name for red and gold, which is Furticae. Some other things about this. How do we get the seed out there? How do we introduce these? Because I don't have I'm not going to produce the seed. In Seed Savers Exchange, there's a great tomato collector named Bill Minke who agreed, once we had a product finished, to grow out the starter sample. And so he would grow out 2,000 to 4,000 seeds of our finished variety, send them back to me, and that's how we got the seed. And we'll wait into part 3 before I talk into establishing those collaborations. But we could actually find interested seed companies that would take the seed, and there's an element of faith here, and we would give it to them. Now, one of the things that we really wanted to do is give smaller seed companies that are focusing on OP varieties a chance to have something a little bit different. And that's how a Sample Seed Shop and a Victory Seed and Fruition and Southern Exposure and Heritage and Tatiana's Tomato Base ended up being the introducers of a lot of our varieties. But they're beautiful and they're fun. And I never, because I'm doing this to satisfy a niche with the public and home gardeners, and this is where my naivety comes through and my paradigm busting comes through, I've never really given it a thought of patenting or protecting or selling these. I just give them away. And they are all pledged to OSSI. So anyone out there who would like to use these to further breed with, get them and play with them and have fun and see what you can create from them as well. Now, this may be a controversial way for me to go upon breeding because I make my living doing other things. I go out and give talks, I write books, I'm retired. And so I feel like this is something I can give back to gardeners in the gardening community by helping to fill a niche by creating a great variety and not really have to worry about the rest of it. I think next slide is, just to comment about what's hard about this, data management, Excel spreadsheets that have thousands of lines. But what really helps is having a website, and we use Tomatoville, where you can collaborate and post your progress and talk about it with the other people that are volunteering. So the whole story of our Dwarf tomato breeding project is sitting on the Tomatoville website. Talk about totally open source. Anyone can go in there and see what the parents are, what we used, how they progressed. So there's no way this whole talk is going to focus just on this project. But what I'm hoping is being provocative enough so that you can ask some questions about how this has worked so well. And do I have one more slide or we go to Jason? Let's see. Next slide. Nope. We go into Jason.
Okay, so I am not a seed grower. That is not in kind of my area of expertise. It's also not something that I'm passionate about. I will never do a commercial seed production of one of my varieties. There are people out there who are much, much, much better at it than I am. And so my strategy is to work with those people to grow the seeds for me. And so you'll see some pictures of those. That's not to say that it is not a lot of work. And to build on what Petra said, it's all about relationships and meeting those people and having trust to send them a variety that you had developed and trusting that they'll do a good job with it. And so this is a seed production of Goldilocks acorn squash in California. It's a 5-acre production field. And you can see here, there's a little bit of a difference in leaf color in that bed that's right next to me. And then there's the next 3 beds are a little bit different. And then there's another bed of that parental line with the lighter leaf color. I don't know if that's, can you guys see that? That is because these are 2 parental lines. And the one that's next to me is the male parental line. And the one beside it is the one that we're using as the seed parent. And so the farmer goes out when the plants are very young and they're just putting out their flower buds, and he puts a chemical on them called Florel, and it is taken up by the plant and it causes the pollen-bearing flowers to not develop. And so he only sprays that on the seed parent lines. And so when there's some beehives over there on the left, when the plants start flowering, only one of those lines is producing pollen. the bees move that pollen from one line to the other. And then when we come back at harvest time, all of the seeds in those seed parent rows are Goldilocks hybrid. Next slide, please, Adrienne. This is a production of Galahad tomato. And I was, again, just I heard about, it's all about relationships. I heard about this company in Costa Rica who did seed productions for some of the tomato breeders around the world. I emailed them and I bought a plane ticket and I went there and I met them. And it's been a very good relationship with them. They have an amazingly talented crew who goes in and hand pollinates tomato flowers. And about the second year that I was working with them, I said, you know, I have some tomatoes. I'm really interested in producing them as organic seed. They're varieties that were bred for organic growers, and I'd like to make those available organically. And we worked for 2 years going through all of the, they built a new greenhouse and they got it certified through an international agency so that they could produce it organic. And this, I think we have about, it's about a 500 plant production here. Next slide, please, Adrienne. So this is our third variety. This is Celine bean. This is, again, an organic production. This is a 2-acre production in the Salinas Valley of California with a seed grower there. And I just wanted to maybe talk a little bit about all the steps that we had to go through to get to this stage. And I didn't say this for the other product, the other Galahad and Goldilocks production, but all of these same logistics had to occur, or similar logistics. But this was, we are just now having our first retail sale in January of 2021. And we have basically spent all this time scaling up the quantity of seed to have that amount of seed. And on a 2-acre production, you can expect to get about 5,000 pounds of seeds. So we had a commercial production in a 2-acre production in California in the summer of 2020. We actually, in order to increase the seed quantities as quickly as we can, we've been trying to get 2 generations a year. And so we met a company at a conference they were based in Chile and they do seed productions there. So we had sent them seeds in the winter. Last winter, they produced our stock seeds. The summer before that, we worked with a seed grower in Idaho to produce the foundation seed. And the winter before that, we produced our breeder seed, which is just a pound of seed. And so it took all this time, basically 3 years, just to scale up seed to be able to have enough to sell. And all of this was after the breeder seed was produced in Florida, which was 1 pound. All of it was done by third-party producers. Oh, Petra, you're muted.
Just want to jump in here, folks. Just want to remind everybody, feel free to put some questions in the chat or raise your hands. We're going through this. If anything comes up that you want clarified, and we'll jump in. So this is an integrated thing. Thank you, everybody. Keep going, Petra. Appreciate it.
Oh, thank you for the reminder, Heron. We are a community and this is a conversation, not just a 3-way. And let's talk distribution. So you've got a new variety and who you're going to talk to about it. Here are some just general thoughts that I'd love to share. Who do you approach in terms of, companies, would add to potentially distribute your seed. And so, if you're really into cooperative models, check out Tournesol in Quebec, and Fedco seeds. If you're really, and if you're really interested in reliable seed for like farm scale, High Mowing and Johnny's are nailing it. So go talk to them. And if you think biodynamic seeds are important, I agree with you. And reach out to Turtle Tree and see what conversations might come next. And if stories, art, culture are really the heart and soul of seed for you. And so reach out to True Love Seeds and Hudson Valley. There's everyone who's sharing seeds has a little different reason why they are sharing those seeds. So the more that you have a rich relationship with those companies, with those humans, and feel free to call up Fruition and be like, what are your core values? And we'll probably be like, have you read Anand Giridharadas' analysis of XYZ? And what did you have for breakfast? And we'll talk about values too throughout. What songs are you singing today? So that's a crucial thing that I think a lot of people, when they come to us wanting to share seeds, haven't really sat down and asked themselves why they've even created this variety and what their ultimate dream for it to be in the world is, and how the stories we share and how we share those seeds can reflect and amplify that beauty and abundance that we are all dedicating our lives to. So yeah, I am a little bored by my next few slides, so I'll just we have this thing called a website, really nice, beautiful packets, make it really easy. Next slide. There are other folks that have garden centers and co-ops that love to share seeds. So there's a lot of amazing ways that we can build community and as we are distributing our seed. But these are some pretty boring models. Oh my gosh, I just want to say how much I love Nate and Dusty and Experimental Farm Network. Also, whoa, amazing humans with some serious value sets, with some really, I would love, Nate, if you're on this call when we do some Q&As, I'd love for you to jump in and share about how you are approaching new varieties, whether it's certainly access, distribution, and everything in between. And finally, I just wanted to, we try to share stories as much and skills as much as seeds. So just as a reminder that we're not just sharing the seeds. The seeds are these beautiful reflections of our core values. And so the more we can really sit with why we're doing what we're doing and being willing to sit with those uncomfortable truths can help us and help me anyway. I'll speak for myself, do what we do better. So Craig, I can't wait.
So I'm going to interrupt. Our chat's starting to get live here, folks. So I'm backing up a little bit. There's some folks that want to know from the three of you, what are the benefits and challenges of breeding open pollinated varieties versus hybrids? And you could hold that question in your mind and circle back to it as a 3-person answer, or we could interrupt now. I'll let you guys choose. There's also a question from Chris McHugh about the volume of seed you need from growers. For example, small seed crops like tomatoes or lettuce versus larger ones like cucurbits. When someone is working to develop new varieties, how much seed do they need to have for a finished result? Which maybe that's stock seed, maybe that's an end result. I suspect that matters depending on what scale you are intending to sell. So there's some questions there. Anyone want to answer one, both, all?
I'm wondering if the one about OP versus hybrid as a target may wait, Jason and Petra, because that's, I think, one of the things that's on our list of things to discuss, and that's a big topic. As far as how much seed, that actually also relates to your model and your philosophy. And are you doing the whole thing? Are you, is it a Jason model? Is it a Craig model? Is it a Petra model? So there's some dependencies there. What do you think, guys?
Yes, absolutely. It depends who the seed is going to and how many people and how much each person wants. And I wish that there was a simple answer for that, but it is extremely variable and is something I am still struggling with when I launch a new variety. What should be the size of that pilot production? Because I don't want to produce 10 times more than I can sell, but I also want to meet the demand. And as you said, it depends a lot on crop. If you are selling it on your own website and you are selling packets of tomato seeds, a few thousand seeds might be all you need, and you could literally do a 15 plant seed production in your backyard and have all the seed that you would want. If you can get a grower in Florida who plants 2,000 acres of tomatoes to pick up a variety, you're going to need a lot more. So it depends a lot. When I work with other companies who actually produce seed, they often have minimum requirements. And so a lot of times the amount that I decide to produce is basically the least amount I can get somebody to grow for me. And some of these large, very sophisticated growers in Sacramento Valley of California, for instance, for squashes, I mean, for them to do a 3-acre production is like a favor. I mean, they would much prefer I was doing a 50-acre production. And they are only, I found, again, like Petra said, it comes down to relationships. The only reason they'll do a quote small production, which for me is a lot of seed, and then I have to try to sell it. The only reason they'll do a small production is because they hope I'll be successful, and 2 or 3 years down the road, I'll be, putting in orders for the quantity of seed they would like to be doing. And I've had to use that kind of goodwill a lot, and it's been kind of humbling to approach these people, and they're like, "Oh, I guess I'll help you out."
Yeah, one last question before we go down another with Craig. Just a question about how do folks keep tabs on existing utility patents? Maybe Jason, this is when you're choosing breeding material or you're working with this, how do you keep track of all this intellectual property stuff?
The government has a searchable database, and also for PVPs and for patents, it can be tough. All patent applications are public, but sometimes the company that patents a variety does not put the variety name in the patent. They'll put the pre-commercial number, or they'll put the parental lines. And it can be a problem in the industry. I think you have to do your due diligence and do the best you can to determine if a variety is patented or not, and go from there. And some companies recently have become much more visible in which of their products are patented, because they want other companies to respect that, and they've kind of identified this as a problem. If you don't know that my varieties are patented, then you're not going to protect my intellectual property or not respect my intellectual property. So now some companies actually have websites where they list all their products that are patented, and they have a link to the patent number, and that's pretty helpful. I will say, patents expire. Patents are a limited amount of time. So just because a variety has a patent on it does not mean that patent is valid. It may have expired, and a lot of times, you have to pay maintenance fees to keep a patent alive for its whole lifespan. And a lot of times, a product isn't selling very much, or maybe it was dropped from their portfolio, or maybe someone forgot to make the payments. And oftentimes, patents run out before their deadline. So it's worth checking into and doing some patent searches if there's a variety you're interested in working on.
Thank you. Do the other two presenters want to respond before Craig continues on any of these topics?
Petra?
As a slight aside, I would just love to lift up, and perhaps some of you saw And perhaps some of you received this letter also from, oh my gosh, was it EASF? Like sent everybody, which I forget what that acronym stands for, but a huge conglomerate chemical seed company sent out a, a letter, like a physical letter. And Matthew actually recycled it because he thought it was a joke. And then he was like, wait a minute, this isn't a joke, of like straight intimidation of tactics of like, these are our varieties and don't even think about it. No, I would just like to share that there's lots of ways to find out this information. And sometimes they come in the mail unsolicited. Whoa.
So one of the joys about using heirlooms to breed is you don't really have to worry about that because they've been around an awful long time. To pick up on one of Petra's words, relationships, and that's really what this slide is about. So Mike Dunton and I, Mike who owns Victory Seeds in Malala, Oregon, met maybe 15 or 20 years ago because we realized we were both hunting for missing Livingston tomato varieties. Alexander Livingston was the tomato breeder from about 1870 up through 1920. And we were combing USDA databases. We were sharing seeds with each other. So we formed a relationship. And Mike has been keeping an eye on my projects. And when I described it to him, I said, we're going to do something different. We're going to let the court of public opinion decide whether what we're creating and releasing are going to be heirlooms, whether people are going to want to grow them in 50 years or more, or whether they're going to decide they're not something they want. So it's kind of fun. And I feel like a parent that's released 134 babies to the world. And I'm not sure who's going to love all of those babies. I could tell people what are my 10 favorite children, but that's really not fair, is it? This almost circles back to one of the early topics about, so you've got a variety. Often we don't know how variety X, let's say Sweet Scarlet Dwarf, I know how the people who helped me, who helped our project develop it, did in their gardens, but I don't know if it's widely adapted to excel in Maine or Oregon or Arizona. And that's one of the real challenges when you do develop varieties is starting to learn about them. And a lot of times it's not until after they're released and you start getting feedback that you think you got this spectacular variety and there's just an area of the country where it's just not happy. And it could be weather, it could be climate, it could be critters or diseases. But let's go to the next slide. It's about relationships. And so I do a few things to build relationships. I use Instagram a lot, and I actually went live every week throughout the gardening season for 45 minutes and showed people what I was working on. I mean, these things are really raw, and they're all kind of archived. They're kind of embarrassing. Sometimes dogs are running in the background. But I'm not professional at this. I'm a home gardener, and I'm trying to build relationships with everyone to answer their questions, to find interested volunteers to help us continue to develop new varieties. And what you end up what happens, so we started releasing our varieties in 2010 or so, and maybe one company introduced them, and then maybe two. And if I Google some of the tomato names from those first 7 or 8 varieties, I find 15 or 20 companies are now selling them. So this is a very bottom-up approach. You're introducing something and just waiting to see what the public thinks of it. And I guess this is kind of the flip side of when Jason was talking about sometimes the intimidation of coming up with an amount of seed for a launch. Well, I've done it in a way where I've built a relationship with Mike, where if I send him 50 seeds of a stable new variety, he will take it from there. And he will grow out the amount that he feels that he can sell in his catalog. And then other seed companies will then get it from him if they want to do an introduction. So that takes me out of the need to have to really be concerned about it. Once I launch the ship, I can watch it sail, but I don't have to really worry about what happens with it anymore. So that's really all I wanted to say about the way that we introduce things. Next slide. And this is the set of things that keep me up at night about doing a breeding project. resources, especially consistent resources, because when I say we had 800 people that have helped us, many of them decide that a breeding project is not for them, so they'll help for one season. Some of them have been with us all 15 years or so. Adequate and consistent data collection can be really, really challenging. We all think with different parts of our brain. I tend to love flavors and scents and aromas and colors and all that sort of thing. Other people are good with numbers. So if you're assembling a team to do a breeding project with, have all those types of people on it if you can. Getting seeds back. 85%, all kinds of seeds go out and I don't get as much back as I want, but that's fine. Nobody's signing contracts, nobody's obligated. They're helping us play and discover. Something that really did become difficult, we were bouncing seeds back and forth to Australia, which was allowing us to get 2 breeding generations into 1 calendar year. Because of all the seed import rules, we're now decoupled. And Australia is doing their thing and we're doing our thing. And then of course, every cross yields far more potential than, especially if you're an amateur like me, you have the ability to see what everything is. So you have to kind of find the best of what you end up finding and hope that you've not left great stuff on the cutting room floor. I think with next slide, are we going to Jason?
I really liked what you just said, Craig, and I just wanted to build off that before I talked about what I was going to talk about. But I tell everybody there's no shame in throwing away good material. If you're doing it right, you should be. The thing you don't want to do, and the thing that you need to have a much lower tolerance for, is advancing bad material. And in order to mitigate that risk, you have to throw away a lot of good stuff, and it can be hard.
Yeah.
Okay, like I said, I will never do a seed production on my own because I don't like to do seed productions. I'm not good at seed productions. I will never sell a seed to an end customer because I'm the world's worst salesman. And when I try to sell somebody seeds, I feel like a used car salesman. I just really, it makes me very uncomfortable. And talking about money and so you know, there's 3 things you have to do to get a variety out there. You have to breed the variety, you have to produce the variety, you have to distribute the variety. And there are people who do 1, 2, or all 3 of those things. And I don't think the question should be, which of those things do I want to do? It's which of those things do I not want to do? And I don't have a website. I don't have social media. I don't want people to know who I am. And so I only wholesale my seeds. And I know the people at Johnny's and the people at Osborne Seeds and Territorial and Harris, who are the product managers. And it's a very relationship-driven business. They know who I am. I know who they are. And every year we get together at least once. We look at new varieties in the field. They tell me, you know, what's wrong with them. And it's a back and forth over several years until we find, and it's part of the process to get that variety in their catalog. And it's not something that, you know, I'm still refining my model and figuring out the best way to do that. But I have, you know, I only work through other retailers. So Osborne Quality Seeds, they're in Washington, and they have carried Goldilocks in their catalog and on their website. And they've also agreed to help me wholesale it to other companies. So I still talk to those other companies and try and send them samples every year and ask how it did in their trials in the summer. But when they're ready to put in an order, I just put them in touch with the people at Osborne, and they sell the seeds. And that it really minimizes the number of actual exchanges that I have to have. And getting paid and all that, it's all clerical work, and it takes a lot of time. And I'm trying to, you know, these varieties that I've developed, you know, I'm only focused on that first section of breeding. Everything else is just like a nuisance to me. It's a means to an end. And it's a distraction from that. And these varieties become like a burden to me. And so that's really my challenge, is how do you like keep this operation going and allow me to do the thing that I really love. So anyways, that's how I saw Goldilocks. I have a similar approach. Please go to the next slide, Adrienne, for Galahad, where the folks at Harris Seeds, their parent company is called Garden Trends, and they have a wholesale seed division. And so I have the seed produced, I sell the whole lot to them. I don't break it into two bags. I send the whole thing to them, and they sell it to other retailers like Johnny's and High Mowing who would like to add it to their catalog. And it makes it so that I don't have to build all that infrastructure and the warehousing myself. And then finally, Celine, we actually, High Mowing helped us identify this variety from over the last 3 years. They've looked at it in their trials. They've given us feedback on it. They tell us what they like about it, what they don't like about it. And so when we decided to, with their input, do a commercial production of it, they were the first person to sign up and buy some seeds, and that was really great. So you can buy Celine right now from just as of like last week or something from their website. Oh, sorry. Could you go back one? I can't see because my slides here, but I put on here, my toolbars here, but I put on here, this is a PVP pending variety. And we have never released an open pollinated variety before, but all beans are open pollinated. And we decided to apply for a plant variety protection. And I think if you value the work of plant breeders and you don't like utility patents on plant germplasm, you should be an ardent supporter of plant variety patents. And
protections, not
sorry,
patents.
Plant variety protections, PVPs. Thank you, Hearn. And I'll be happy to talk about that, more during the discussion session if people wanted to.
Jason, I have a question for you. Are you paid by project or contract, or do you decide your own breeding projects? In other words, is anyone asking you to do these things on spec, or are you and your partner just deciding these are the things you want to work on and starting from scratch?
That's a great question. And when I got started, I had high hopes that I would be able to find some sponsored projects where people would say to me, we want this kind of a tomato, and we will give you some money for the next however long it takes to develop it. And then we get some sort of, then we get access to that variety when it's completed. And I have had very little luck at doing that. People are very excited about it, and you draft a proposal. I've probably gone through this 4 or 5 times, and you sit down and you tell people what the timelines are like to develop a variety. And people, you have to be, just talk to Craig about how long some of these projects have taken and when he got started. And people want something quickly. And at Plant Breeder, you have to suspend, you can't even think about it because you have to get up and do the work every day, and knowing that it's not going to be a completed project where you might actually make some money on it for 4 or 5 years. And how do you fund it in the meantime? So no, these are all, we just we ask people, we get feedback, you think this would be useful. I spend a lot of time in the field. I visited about, I tried counting, I think I visited about 70 farms this past year, looking at trials and asking people's opinions about what they liked and what they don't like. And these are not for our commercial varieties. These are things that are still 2-3 years away. And, I send out hundreds of samples every year and see how they do. And that's how I kind of decide what to work on. But there's no guaranteed thing. And it's kind of a little bit of a crystal ball.
Yes, I believe it was only the original quantum physics person, Leibniz, who obtained an unlimited amount of money from Peter the Great to do his ongoing research. The only successful person to do that. I actually wanted to just back up for just a second. We actually have a lawyer in the room. Emily Spiegel has joined us from Vermont Law, and there's a question about what prior art means. And I wonder quickly, Emily, would you unmute and just give a quick synopsis of what that means to us? Sorry to put you on the spot.
Sure, thanks, Heron. So prior art is the existing body of knowledge in any particular field. So in this case, in plant breeding. And the legal term prior art is used in intellectual property and especially in patents to describe what exists before an invention that's being patented. And so if a particular invention, or if the traits of a particular variety already exist somewhere else, then that would be considered part of the prior art.
And that goes a little bit, that goes a little bit to the idea of the utility patent, and maybe the concept you can explain that these patents are not valid until they've been challenged. Could you expound on that a little bit? Or
I'm not sure
the utility,
totally what that question is, but
well, yes, the utility patent element of like, are utility patents, are they binding in the moment that they are approved legally, or is there a challenge process by which they become, that prior art can challenge that?
They're enforceable once they are approved and go into effect. They're enforceable by the patent holder. However, they're still vulnerable to challenge if, if somebody else can bring a claim to show that a particular patent shouldn't have been granted because, for example, it was not a new invention, it already existed in the prior art. So that's a possibility, but until that challenge is brought forth and is successful, the patent is enforceable.
Thank you, Emily. Really appreciate it.
Sure.
Great to have lawyers around. Emily is doing some great work in patent law up at UVM. Put out a publication in 2019. Everyone should check it out. Okay, thanks. Back to the presentation.
And yeah, just to clarify, I misspoke before. This variety has a PVP on it, not a patent. If people want to breed with this variety, they can. If they want to save seed and replant it the next year in their garden, they can, but they cannot sell those seeds. And it really gives the PVP holder kind of the marketing rights for a limited amount of time. And I know there's been a lot of talk over this conference about patents and in vegetable germplasm. It's really not that widespread. There is not a lot of varieties that are patented. It's only in certain crops like beans and lettuce and some tomatoes and some other crops. And it's really only varieties that have come out in about the last 10 years. And the vast majority of material, if you open up a seed catalog, is not restricted for use in breeding in any way. Okay, so this is okay. This is just kind of our summary and maybe some thoughts that we can talk more about. I think we still have over half an hour if people want to stick around.
Yeah, Jason, what I was thinking of, if we wanted to read through these points and maybe say section 1, breeding a new variety, and then just seeing if anyone on the call raised their hand and wanted to ask us a question about one of those points. We can maybe spend 5 minutes on each of the sections 1, 2, and 3. I mean, it's one way to do it.
Please. Yeah, maybe Craig, you can introduce section 1 and Petra, if you're willing, maybe section 2. And
sure. Okay, so breed a new variety. And let's think in terms, a lot of you have probably been on all 3 of these. So let's call this Q&A even for the day, where you can think back and reflect on some of the things that questions that may have come to mind where you were listening to some of these other aspects of breeding. But breed a new variety. Who will want your new variety and why? So do you have a specific niche in mind, or are you just doing a cross and seeing what happens? How well do you know what you've produced? What are the gaps in information that you have about it? And it could be disease resistance, it could be adaptability, it could be yield. This is one that I'm sure that we're going to want to spend a bit of time in, because there is a difference in approach, in endpoint, in expectations. If you're looking to put out a stable OP variety, or if you want to sell an F1 hybrid. What are your aims? Is this something that you really want to depend on income-wise? Is it you want to please gardeners or farmers or fill a needed niche? Availability, OSSI, PVP, etc. And do you have adequate resources to do this work? And thinking of all those things we talked about today, record keeping, how you get seed back and forth. So it would be great to see where questions lie. And already, Jason and Petra, I know that we have that question that was raised about OP versus hybrid. Maybe Jason, do you want to kind of say a few words about that?
Sure, and then maybe we can pause here and
Yeah.
see if there's any more questions on this first section.
Hmm.
This is my own take, but there are a few reasons to breed a hybrid crop over an OP, and there are a few reasons to breed an OP crop over a hybrid. I'll just give my thoughts on that. But generally, there may be some advantages to hybrid crops. They may be more vigorous. They may be more uniform. That's not a blanket statement, but I think it is a trend. And one thing you can do in a hybrid crop that you cannot do in an OP is combine multiple characteristics. So I mentioned that there were 8 different disease resistance genes in Galahad. It would be very hard to put all of those 8 into an OP. But we can put 4 into one tomato and 4 into another. And then when we make a hybrid cross, it has all 8. The other advantage of a hybrid, and this is the reason I think most companies work in developing hybrids, is because there's some built-in intellectual property protection. If you want to buy a Goldilocks squash seed, you basically have to purchase it from me. There's nowhere else. Or one of my, the people that I distribute seeds through, the retailers that buy it from me. If you want to save seeds out of Goldilocks, great. I hope people do. I hope people breed new varieties out of it, but it's not going to be Goldilocks the next year. So and most people, if you're a grower, you want to know what you're getting. You want to get something that's stable and uniform and performs the same way it did last year. And so it kind of encourages people to buy seeds from you if it's a hybrid. If it's an OP, people can save their seeds unless you get some sort of intellectual property on it. And so they may elect to not buy seeds from you in subsequent years, which is can be difficult to fund a breeding program in that way.
Good. Petra, did you want to add anything to the OP versus F1 hybrid goal? And you're muted, by the way.
Bless you and happy birthday again, Greg. I think we could move on. There's so much to share, and I don't want to take up much. It's so easy to we'll be talking about it for the rest of our lives. I think the only thing that I would love to share is that similarly to why are you developing that new variety, and who might, if you're just like, who might distribute it? Who might grow it? What are you actually doing this for whom, and what systems around you are you benefiting from? And I so respect that respect itself is highly commodified and is only recognized in very specific and very colonized extractive ways, which changes the conversation. But I really, look forward to spending the rest of our lives learning more about the implications of growing ourselves as well as our seeds.
I'll say one thing about OP is that one downside of a hybrid is that it makes the seed production a lot harder. And we really want to release an organic hybrid butternut squash. And that fluorel treatment that I described for Goldilocks is not organically approved. And so the only way to do it is by hand pollination. And so we actually worked with a seed grower in California. We did a large production, not a large production, we did a modest production of an organic hybrid butternut, and the production cost was 3 times higher than I can sell it for. So we've basically decided we cannot release, we lost money on selling a butternut hybrid organically. And so we've decided there are some species like squashes and melons where we really want to release an organic variety and produce the seeds organically. And the only way we can do that is an OP. And so we've released an OP butternut this year, and we're working on an OP watermelon and then OP cantaloupe. And those are, and people like FedCo have been really excited to trial some of those. So we'll see where it goes.
Yeah, I think to maybe wrap up this question, to answer that question for anybody on the call, OP versus F1 hybrid, you almost have to examine every other step here. What your philosophy is, what your resources are, what your goal is. And that's really how you answer that question for yourself. So I guess who wants to talk about our number 2 questions? Although, I don't know, Heron, do you want to ask? I know a really important question popped up in the chat, and I don't know if we want to cover that one now.
Well, why don't you tackle it?
I'm going to tackle it with my 2 friends here. So each of you has different ways of feeding and housing yourselves in the world which needs money. I'm wondering if you folks have thought on how we support the work with seeds that we need as our climate changes. Absolutely. We need people like you, Jason, who are creating amazing new melons, Annie and Kathy working on new pepper called Renegade Red, need folks like our friend Jackie, who is Kanyan Kahaka, who is speaking on Saturday. And I'm sorry so badly for butchering the pronunciation of that, who is looking after seeds from your community each year, kind of seed breeding in itself. Anyhow, how can we better support all these seed keepers? It's such important work, but like Jason says, we often don't like talking about money. I want you to all be able to make a living though this important work. How can I best support this or you? It's a great comment. It's not only a question, it's a comment on so many different things.
Yeah. I would just interject, you know, it's funny, our keynote author and Professor Banu Subramaniam said in her book that in some countries you couldn't get a person to speak about their sex life, but they will tell you how much money they make. In America, we'll all tell you all about our sex lives, but we won't tell you anything about our money. So it's just something that I think kind of, you know, we don't like talking about how we make this work and what does that mean and what are their consequences, which is some of what Petra was touching on previously, you know.
I think the other extremely important comment in there is breeding for a changing climate. In fact, breeding for a rapidly changing climate. One of my joys in dipping into OPs and saving seeds in having such a large collection is you don't know where the answer to tomorrow's farming or gardening problem is going to lie. And it could be in a sample in your collection that you've never thought much in the past, but all of a sudden it's got drought tolerance. It's got the ability to set in hot weather. So there's room for there's room for OPs, there's room for hybrids. But I really like the idea that we have to try to hit moving targets much, much better because it's becoming difficult to grow certain things in different regions. So anyway, Jason or Petra, anything you wanted to add to this?
Petra, you want to go ahead?
I'm so glad you asked. There's so much to unpack.
There's so much.
And yeah, it ties very closely into that OP F1 as well, where like, and you know, I would love to lift up our friend, mentor, Klaus Martens in this moment as well. And I love, years ago, we were in his field, one of his fields, I'm walking, and we were talking about the weeds and among other things, and we were deep in the weeds, it was true. and he was like, you know, if you ask the wrong question, you get the wrong answer. And kind of not in the, like, there's no wrong question. I am a firm believer. But more specifically, his insight was, and that gift that he gave me that day was, if you say, how do we get rid of all of these weeds as fast as possible? That sends you into one watershed of response. And if you ask, how did all these weeds get here to begin with? That suddenly sends you into an entirely different watershed of inquiry. And so it's something that I honestly, all the time, I'm like, wow, I ask a lot of wrong questions. And it's not that they're bad questions, and it's also that they're not right. It's just that without a really critical and analysis of these larger systems and the water that we swim in, then we start to like be okay with certain things that are really inherently extractive and more than we would otherwise realize, which is just an open invitation myself at the top of the chopping block for, you know, in full disclosure, I dreamed about Fruition for the better part of a decade, feeling like, wouldn't it be nice to be able to share my seeds with the world? And oh my God. So then Matthew and I start Fruition, and I think it's a wonderful way to, you know, be and seed the change we want to see. And now fast forward, I'm like, that's the most audacious thing I could have done with my life. Who am I? Oh, yes. So now I get to, you know, spend the rest of my life asking different kinds of questions, knowing that I'll never, you know, but one of the main things that I would actually love to ask and just like share your thoughts, Jason, I'm really interested in vertical versus horizontal resistance. And so we too, you know, if you had told me a decade ago that I would ever have created F1 hybrids, I would have been like, what? Do you know me? You obviously don't. And then fast forward, friends, mentors, and just, I'm like pretty open to being broken open. And so fast forward, I'm like, whoa, hybrids are a pretty amazing tool. They aren't necessarily, you know, like a glove in a hand in a glove, like it's more about the hand inside than what's surrounding it. So what is your intention in this? And it's not, you don't have to patent the inbred lines, or they don't even have to be inbred lines necessarily to make a hybrid. And so all of these things, fast forward, we have this, you know, disease resistant, incredibly disease resistant tomato as well. But I'm really curious, you know, I'm excited to, you know, live another moment. If I have another few decades on this planet, I'm really looking forward to seeing how that pretty horizontally stacked gene set moves forth into our rapidly changing everything in the future. So I'm curious, you know, I'm more and more interested in really investing in these, you know, like variability, you know, like what is this object of like uniformity that we're all obsessed with? Because you can market it. Wait, to who? For what kind of system? So I'm really just increasingly like, what else am I doing besides creating really robust, vividly alive and rapidly transforming and delicious? I mean, and land races is such a derogatory term, but these beautiful populations that, and you can have a lot of uniformity, it just within a very diverse population, you just need to be actively selecting it and acting like an ecosystem, right? So that's more like horizontal versus vertical, but I don't claim to have, you know, we'll be learning about these things for the rest of my life, both in like, what is DNA and wait, why do I think that fixed traits are important, and everything in between. So Jason, I would love to hear your thoughts on changing on that horizontal, vertical, and just climate change and how we're adapting.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, for some reason, it's kind of often put forward as like a dichotomy where it's either or. but it's really not. And, you know, we have some very good resistance genes that are single gene resistance, like the verticillium wilt gene and fusarium wilt gene, the gene for resistance against those diseases. But that doesn't mean you just put that gene in there and call it a day. you still have to put it into, you know, the background is everything. I mean, it's how well it performs to different stresses and other diseases, and changes in environment, and those are all horizontal. I mean, I basically look at it as you get these ones out of the way because they're kind of easy and you have a marker for them. So you get those into your germplasm, but everything else is horizontal. And, you know, we have probably the biggest disease problem in the Southeast is in tomatoes is bacterial spot. And it's basically horizontal resistance that we're working with. And it just, you screen through a lot of material and look for stuff that holds up well. And so we really, even in hybrid varieties, that hopefully you're doing it, you know, looking for both types of resistance. But the question kind of led into our final slide. So maybe we should move forward. You know, just thinking about like kind of the seed system generally, and you know, money made along the way, and how we kind of put our ideals into like a practical a job or career, and are there other models that could accomplish this? And I think the answer is yes. I'm hoping some people might have some here, but I mean, I think of it a lot like food. I mean, you talk to a local organic grower, and they get I tell this story all the time, but they get very frustrated when they see people going to the store and buying conventional lettuce from California. But you know, they're going to the seed catalog and they're buying patented modern varieties from multinational companies, and a lot of this seed was produced in other countries. And I think until people have kind of a connection to their seeds and where it comes from, they'll continue to be that curtain, and then it makes it hard to change that system. When I released my first tomato variety, I produced it organically in the United States. And I went around trying to tell everybody that I had the only organic tomato hybrid that you could buy. I think now there's some others that was produced in the United States. And I know Fruition has done some of that work. But this was like 4 or 5 years ago. I think it was the only one on the market. And people are like, what do you mean? I buy my seed from my favorite seed supplier in the Northeast, and are not really aware that seed was purchased by their favorite seed supplier from another company who had it produced by a production company in, likely overseas. So anyways, it's a tough one.
So we've got about 15 minutes left, and I feel like we've filled up a lot of airwaves with words, and hopefully people have enjoyed the personal knowledge we shared in the stories. But we'd love to hear more questions from you about what you need from us, what you'd like to share with each other. So either raise your hand or use the chat button. And I think the slide is just shifted to a contact list.
Yeah. So folks, the raise hand, thing is a great thing, and the chat's a great thing. And I just want to preface this by, these are the hard questions and hard conversations we keep here that we want to have. And in theory, we're going to try to have some of those on Sunday. So let's not have too many crickets here. There's some brave voices out there. We'll lift it up, write it up. But these folks are here to lift it up with you.
Hey everybody. Petra asked if I'd chime in earlier, so I'm chiming in now. So I wanted to answer the specific question that you posed, but I was going to answer one of the last slides too. So with the Experimental Farm Network, we're kind of a rogue seed company in some ways. We don't do things like other seed companies, and we you know, when I hear Jason talk about 5,000 pounds of bean seeds, like, we're thrilled if we can get 5 pounds of bean seeds. Like, that's a run for us. We can make enough packets to make it worth our while. In some cases, we just want to put something out there that we know is interesting, and even if we can only make 60 packets of it, you know, having something that nobody else has and having something that is really useful, putting it out there is a net benefit for our nonprofit because it gets more people interested in the broader work that we're doing. And in the last couple of years, we've tried to focus on growers, and as much on growers as on particular varieties. So we're trying to, if we develop relationships with interesting growers, and if they have something cool to offer, we pretty much take them at their word that this is something cool, and we don't need to grow it ourselves, but we're happy to put it on our catalog and put it out there. And you know, we have breeding populations and things that we know are not stable at all, but people are going to be interested in. And the one thing I wanted to say too about distributing free seeds, that's sort of an interesting coda that, you know, last year we started this process that led to the Cooperative Gardens Commission, and ended up giving away with all volunteer labor and donated seed, giving away probably 10 times more seed than we've sold since we came into existence over the last 7 years. And you know, this year we plan to give away even more seed. And yeah, some of it's seed that we grew, but most of it's seed that other people produced. But you know, the seed company side of what we do has been selling. Last year we sold, I mean, like everybody, we sold more seeds than we'd ever sold before. And this year, you know, in 2 weeks of having our catalog up, we've sold we're over half of all of our sales last year already. And you know, some of that, a great deal of that, people have come to know who we are because we were giving away all of these seeds too. And I think there is such abundance out there, and there are people who need seeds and can't afford seeds. And I think the more we can give away, at least it's been our experience that the more we give away, the more we sell. And that's just a funny little thing. But thank you all for this talk. This was really great, and I loved hearing from everybody. Check.
Well, I don't see any more questions in the chat. Jason answered this question about how long do patents last. 20 years is a utility patent. Anybody else have a raised hand or a question you want to put in the chat, or just a question you want to ask everybody else? Just as a community. Well, I'm going to take some liberties. I think one of the questions I might have for folks is about the idea of, I guess, fair trade or equal exchange type concepts in relationship to seed that is grown away, you know, meaning that there's both OP and hybrid seed grown overseas. Let's be very clear. It is not explicitly hybrid seed. In fact, it's probably more OP seed by volume. And it is based upon labor systems. And obviously conventional seed has an element of extreme chemical use because, as folks may or may not know, conventional seed or seed in general is not considered a food crop, and a seed crop can be treated multiple times with chemicals that a food crop cannot be treated with. So I have some questions about to this group. Do you think that it's not explicitly around the hybrid or OP, but more around the people and the places in which we care for those seeds and that grow those seeds for us and with us? Let's sort of misname this thing hybrid and back it up to that relationship model. And do you have thoughts on that? Panelists.
Having grown not many different crop types, but enough different crop types for hybrid production in the last handful of years, I wouldn't wish it upon anyone. It's a great joy to cross a tomato when you are producing F1 hybrid tomato seed, when you are producing a hybrid melon, a hybrid squash. I honestly don't think, and this is like Petra goes wild in public, I don't think you can pay someone enough money to do that work and to be taking care of themselves and the land that they live on. I don't think it's possible, to be honest with you. So that's a thought.
It's very skilled work. Let's just be really explicit that there are skilled plant workers all over the world who are more skilled than probably everybody in this room, or on the Zoom room, I should say. So let's not, reflect on that in any but admiration for that work. But I wonder, Jason, if you've had thoughts about how and where hybrid seed, gets produced. And I know you've seen that from different angles.
Yes, I have a lot of thoughts about it. And I've been fortunate enough to see seed productions in many places, and have had, I think, there are people who know a lot more about it than I do, but I've seen enough to, I don't know. I've been to places I've been to Northwest China and the seed production areas up there, and South Africa, and it's manual labor. And if you go to a large packing facility in the United States where they're growing, commodity tomatoes or onions, and I see it as it's no different. It's tough work. It's very repetitive, loud noises, and it's someone's job to stand there all day and watch all these onions going by on a grading line and to pull the ones off that are too flat or have a rotten spot. And pollinating tomatoes is the same way. It's very tough. It's very hard. It's very repetitive, and I think that people should be paid well for that job. And there are places in the world where people are paid well for that job, and there are places in the world where people are not. There are companies that pay people well. There are companies that don't, and navigating that and finding the best people to work with is like we keep talking about. It's a relationship thing. It's traveling. It's talking to people. It's going there. It's asking questions that maybe they don't want to ask, and it's almost a full-time job in itself. So, just like we go to the store and we buy clothes, and there's this whole chain of hands that it has touched that fabric, and our food has been by all these different people doing all these tough jobs, and really it comes down to no visibility. And I think people should ask questions about where their seed comes from. It's on the farmer. It's the farmer's responsibility to make sure they're buying seed from the right people, just like it's the consumer's responsibility to know where their food comes from. And I think that's the only way things will improve.
Yep. I think Richard Favreau, a speaker this morning in his chat, says the same. People are getting conscious of food growing, where their food's from, but very little are aware of the origin of the seed that they use. So it seems like that's work that our community needs to do. And
when you ship seeds at a wholesale level, it has to have the country of origin on it. And so when a seed arrives in bulk to Fedco or Johnny's or presumably Fruition, it has the country of origin. And when it gets broken down into a packet or into 100 seeds, that's where that information is lost. And all you have to do is call or speak with the person you're putting the seed order in with and ask them, and they'll tell you. You just have to do a little bit of work.
Yes, that information is on those packages. And I think there's a reticence in our community to share that transparently, because when folks have, there's been a xenophobic lashback. People like to imagine that their gardens are pure places of sanctity where they go for refuge from the world's troubles. Many people do not like the idea that there are effectively global seed supplies that may not be local and may not be untainted by issues. So we are going to challenge our folks in the if we pull back the curtain. So maybe now is a good time to do that. I think that would be a conversation. So Craig, I wonder have folks ever been wondering for you and when you've talked about the sort of international group that you've been working with, has there ever been any questions? Like people are like, oh, this isn't from the US. Do people value that? Do people understand? You've been very transparent about what you've been doing, and it seems like people would appreciate that.
Yeah. You know, to me, I keep thinking education and mindfulness, and then I keep arcing back to how Petra opened this up for all of us. So I guess some of the examples that come to mind were, we used to sell our seedlings at a farmer's market. And so you'd hear discussions. You hear discussions about, you know, why am I going to pay $3 a pound for these tomatoes when I can go to Walmart and buy them for 59 cents? Or they'd come and look at my heirloom plants and, you know, that were $2 or $3 a piece because Metromix 360 costs and pots cost. And no, I just want to buy a 6-pack of Better Boys for $1. And so this transcends all of our transactions in life. And I think we all have to take a good hard look at ourselves and think about, do we think enough about these things? Where our seed comes from, what's in our garden, who produces what we use? And I think we are such a flawed species, and we are an incredible work in progress. And it's conversations like this that can start to chip away at any of the blind spots that any of us have. But I've not, in our project, it's just been the joy of collaborating and sharing and talking about the colors, and no one has really commented a whole lot. And, you know, I'm shipping seeds out to Italy and England and Russia and Spain, and we got people planning our project from all over the world, and it's been just a joy. But none of us in the project are even thinking about making money from it. We're all creating something. So we're not taking the next step to commercialization that makes things that much more challenging, I think.
Anna in the chat notes, the work is every bit as important as any doctor, lawyer, etc., and are worthy of equal compensation. So I'm going to let you each, you know, give your last thoughts to the folks. I know, Craig, that was, you know, but you'll get another chance. Petra, we'll start with you and just give your last thoughts about what you want folks to go away with.
There's no I in plant breeder. Matthew raised his hand in bed maybe 6 weeks ago. He was like, there's no I in plant breeder. There is in plant breeding. It's a verb. And so, yes, I think I really enjoyed, and it's been a little terrifying, as all great journeys are. Being like, wow, I was kind of slow, but then quick to be like, yes, I can claim this identity as a plant breeder. And it's been really humbling and also liberating the last, honestly, 6 weeks. It's a very nascent revelation that I can be a plant breeder in community. I can be a community plant breeder. But me personally, because even if it's just me and a carrot, then that's just me being like ignoring the fact that there's another being in the room called the carrot, called the seed. So yes, final thoughts. We are all plant breeders now. We are all leaders now. We cannot wait for leaders to lead us. Happy Inauguration Day. Yes, let's celebrate. We are all leaders now. Make no mistake. Do not wait for them to lead us. And we are all plant breeders too. We can't leave this kind of work to the professionals, as Will Bonsall always loves to say, and I always love it when he says, you know, there's certain things that, you know, whether it's tucking your kids in at night or making love to your spouse, that there are no professionals. Don't let them tell you that they're the professionals. And in that same spirit, we are all plant breeders, because none of us can be a plant breeder alone. And thank you, Craig. Thank you, Jason. Thank you, Heron. Thank you, Nofa. Thank you all. And I can't wait to hug you all one day.
Jason, thoughts?
Oh, yeah, I mean, I agree with that comment. I think there about, you know, it being an important job, but I would say the plant breeding is the easy part. It's the seed production is an important job. And if there's any skill that has been lost and expertise along the way, I would say it's in the production for the reasons that we've talked about. A lot of that has gone overseas. A lot of it has been consolidated into a few very large producers. The equipment, the know-how, the contacts a lot of it has been lost. And yeah, I'm really excited to see some of the stuff happening in the Northeast, and I really hope it continues. But I would also say that, you know, the distribution at that last stage of it is also a lot of work, and you got to do all the marketing. And you should really kind of think what goes into your seeds when you buy them. And, you know, like anything, make sure you're giving that money to the right people.
It was an honor and a privilege to present with you and to learn from you, Jason and Petra, and everyone who has been in this meeting. So thank you. I'm still a bit shocked to find myself here. I'm a home gardener. I grow things, and then because I'm kind of curious, all of a sudden, as Petra said, I can work with people and breed some new varieties. And but mostly what I want to do is just grow gardeners. What I'll encourage all of you to do is have fun, create a project, get a hybrid you like, save seeds from it, grow it out. You're starting a breeding project. But just have a blast with it, and please use us as resources. I'll speak for myself, maybe I'll speak for all of it. If you have any questions at all, if you want seeds, email me, ask anything, anytime. I just want to be a resource to help out in any way I can.
Yeah, well, everybody, please save this chat. And I'm going to give a great thanks to our translators today. We forgot they existed. That's how awesome they are, Fanny and Peter. And they will not be joining us for the rest of the conference. This is their last tour of duty with us. And really appreciative to the Bauta Family Initiative for making their services available. And thank you, Craig. Thank you, Jason. Thank you, Petra. So many conversations to be had from this point. I know we will. There's a lot of scheming going on behind the scenes, people. And we hope that we're going to pull back the curtain on all of that sometime over the next year or two. Please be part of the behind the curtain and the play. That's what we're doing today. That's what we're doing this week. Tomorrow morning, Anna Muhammad, my ace co-pilot. Oh, Craig, you might want to mute there for a second. My ace co-pilot and Petra will be hosting a Women in Farm and Seed meetup tomorrow morning. Please be there. And then the afternoon, Nate is moderating the Pushing Boundaries session with a lot of wonderful, great seed folks doing some good work. Tomorrow evening, Banu Subramaniam is doing the keynote, which is amazing, and I look forward to it. Friday morning, there's a LGBTQ non-binary meetup of Farm and Seed Friday morning. And then the Ecotype seed classes on Friday afternoons. Looking forward to that, Sephra and gang. Friday night, open mic night, people. Bring your stories, bring your poems. I don't know about bring your ukuleles, but something. And then Saturday, Elizabeth Hoover will be moderating a full day with some very skilled members of our indigenous nations speaking about their seed experiences and allyship. And Sunday, needs assessment day, people. Let's get it going. Okay. Peace, love, good night.
Happy birthday, Craig.
Happy birthday, Craig. We got your president. What else do you want? Thank you, Adrienne, for being our running the boards, the DJ tonight.
Adrienne, we love you. Hugo, we miss you. Hannah, oh my gosh. Maddie, Muddy Fingers Farm. Michael Gloss. What? Michael Gloss being so quiet in the corner. I won't have it. We miss you. Love you all.
Okay. Be well. Good night.
Good night.